Hello readers of The Edit. Today, we have stories on the timeline that it is better not to mess with. I will not detain you anymore. Put a like and subscribe to the channel of pleasant viewing. Story 1 from user TinyTabbyTubebeans. Chickens. While there are chicks present, my brother is a cruel little shit who liked being mean to animals while we were kids. He liked hurting them for the feeling of power it gave him. So he hurt a lot of small wildlife like frogs and garter snakes and mice. When that stopped being enough, he decided to go after livestock. We had chickens. There was a great big rooster and his ladies, and all of them had chicks. My job was to take care of the chickens, feed water, them collect eggs. My brother was bigger and stronger than me. So one day he decided to have fun and grabbed up one of the little chicks in the coop and squeezed it until it started to scream for help. My attempts to stop him did nothing. Now the chickens were used to me picking up the chicks and petting them, so they weren't alarmed when my brother picked up the chick. When it screamed, however, all hell broke loose. All the chickens went after him, going for his face and eyes. The rooster had spurs on his legs over an inch long, and he cut big grooves on my brother's face, missing his eyes by millimeters. They swarmed him and bullied him until he dropped the chick and ran out of the coop, crying with blood on his face. He was 10 at the time, and should have known better. Did he stop being mean to animals? No. Did they punish him for it? When they could, the animals sure did. Chickens are very much like the cuckoos in the Zelda games. If you hurt one, they will all swarm. You edit. I got several questions and I will detail them here. So people doing have to go digging through comments. Yes. My brother and I were both abused by our father. Our mother was a kindly woman who did her best to nurture and discipline my brother. She died when I was 7 years old, and my brother at 9 years old from cancer. My father went off the deep end and took out his rage on us both. He worked 2 shifts at a factory daily and did not want to be disturbed when home, or he would beat us. So no, there was no adult supervision, and we were left to our own devices, except for a weekend here and there when our maternal grandmother would have us. She also did her best. But our father excused and enabled my brother's behavior because he was more valuable in his eyes, compared to me, a sickly girl. We did go to school. Yes. CPS was called a couple times, and my father told everyone that I was a pathological liar. So nothing came of it. My brother most likely had a genetic flaw or some inherited mental health disorder that kept my brother from feeling empathy. However, our father did not believe in mental health services. So my brother never got therapy or help. I fully believe he would have turned out to be a different person if he had these services. Instead, he was isolated, abused, and enabled. It made him entitled and gave him the need to exert his will over everyone. If he wanted something, he simply took it, including my innocence. He grew up into a terrible adult. No, he didn't kill anyone. I don't believe he would kill anyone because he likes to manipulate people, and you can't manipulate a dead person. He instead became a thief, a rapist, and fell hard into drug use. The last time I spoke to him was in 2013. I have fully cut him off from my life and have not spoken to him since. Maybe he has changed in these 10 years, but I have no way of knowing. Once in a while, I scan obituaries looking for his name, but otherwise I have nothing to do with him. I acknowledge that he had a messed up beginning like I did. However, he willfully chose to hurt me and has never apologized or acknowledged what he did to me, even as adults. I may have forgiven him if he had at least acknowledged what he did was wrong, but he believes he did nothing wrong. So for my health and safety, I chose to cut him out. I have diagnosed CPTSD that I will have for the rest of my life. However, I spent the last decade in therapy, learning how to cope and live with what happened to me. Some days are better than others, but I am genuinely happy and am in a safe place, several states away and surrounded by my friends who have become my new loving family. So yes, I'm okay. Now I don't fear him or my father coming after me because they are lazy cowards, and I'm too strong now to allow them to hurt me. If any of them contact me about giving up a kidney or a liver lobe, I will laugh in their faces and then get a restraining order. Story 2. From user Brain Squeezed, lakes and water in general. 2 stories. My childhood summers were spent on the lake. I remember tubing, skiing, swimming, jumping off the dock boat and cliffs. I will never forget this one summer. I had to be between 10-13. We anchored in a little alcove off the main strip. There were these power lines running overhead back and forth, and you could actually hear the current when it got really quiet. We weren't too far off from the shore, but still plenty deep, so we didn't run up onto ground. We all started to settle in and get in the water. I remember diving in off the boat. I was a good enough swimmer to not need a life jacket. Late 90s, early 2000s, when helicopter parenting still didn't exist in the water. I started to swim around, and not more than 2 feet from where I dived in, I felt a metal pole sticking up from the floor of the lake, and it still had to be at least a good 50 feet down. Before you hit bottom, I was able to stand on it, so that I was a little more than chest deep out of the water, but it was sharp enough to cut my foot. I still think back on that, and how I could have easily impaled myself on that metal pole and caused some serious damage. Flash forward to another summer, when I was between 17 and 18, and me and my current boyfriend at the time went to a friend's house on the lake. He had jet skis, so we rode out in pairs to this popular cliff jumping spot, where a bunch of other people were jumping off. We get there and see everyone going off the rope swing at the top of the cliff, at least 30 feet. We watch a few people go, and then my boyfriend and I decide to try it. We swim over to the cliff, climb up, and get to the top. We do not have life jackets on BC. Hey, no one else did either. I go first off the rope swing. First time going off a rope swing. So I let go and cannot right myself, and I land in a curled belly flop face. First in the water position, I hit the water thinking I broke ribs and my cheekbone. I emerge from the water, panicking, gasping for air and struggling to coordinate my limbs. No one seems to notice or care. I manage to catch my breath while struggling to swim back to the jet ski. As my BF takes his place at the rope swing, I watch him take his stance, push off, let go and smack the water full belly flop. The sound echoed across the lake and it got quiet. I remember sitting on the jet ski thinking any second now. Hell, come up any second now. 3 more seconds and I am diving in after him. I held my breath the entire time he was under. But he finally emerged, thank God, BC. We are married now anyway. We got him on the jet ski and started to drive back to my friend's house when these girls rode up next to us on a jet ski, waving to my boyfriend and flirting like they were going to get his number or something. After a few minutes, they drove off, but after recounting the story. Later, he doesn't remember that happening at all. He had a concussion from cliff jumping. We found out later that that particular spot had an underwater cave that would occasionally suck people under and drown them. So he was incredibly lucky to not have had that happen. There were no signs or warnings anywhere about the cave or other potential hazards. One more cautionary story about lakes. We had a friend that was out on the lake with his wife and friends. She was just in the water hanging out, and he had his back to her for a few minutes when he turned back around. She was gone. They wouldn't find her body for 3 days, and they still have no idea what happened to her. As an ex-lifeguard, someone who has had personal traumatic experiences at lakes and attended a 3-year-old's funeral, who drowned due to a hole in a fence and the side of the old pool collapsing. I urge you not to mess around with water tubs, pools, etc. You need to be vigilant regardless of the water source. However, with lakes, you only have so much visible depth before a loved one is gone. Drowning is usually silent, fast, and deadly. Please be safe out there. Story 3 from user #AndusHales. Your mental health. I was always a wicked, healthy kid miraculously. But then high school involved mega anxiety and perfectionism, turning toxic eating disorder, self-harm attempt at life in college. And I'll be honest, I enjoyed a dang good time in college into my mid-20s. But at 23, I developed debilitating symptoms of insatiable sleepiness. It turned out to be a rare neurological sleep disorder, and it made my 9-to-5 job feel absolutely impossible. Even with 13 daily alarms, said I'd still sleep through them. I'd fall asleep in the shower at my desk, 10 times a day. While driving, this disorder, coupled with a toxic workplace, meant I was always on eggshells some days. My boss wouldn't care if I strolled in at 10. Other times he'd give me the cold shoulder if I came in at 9:30. My coworkers held grudges, and when there were medication shortages, I couldn't safely get to work. I developed severe anxiety attacks that would launch me into catastrophe each morning. I woke up late that turned into panic disorder, randomly for no damn reason when I was on certain roads or whatever. And when I went to my doc for a refill on anxiety meds, she told me she couldn't in good conscience let me go into work because I was in hypertensive crisis from the frequency of panic episodes. So she wrote me an immediate RIAX for no work for 6 weeks, which meant less income and 5x the therapy psychiatry bills. I went into debt to keep my mental health intact. BC. I was so afraid of relapsing into my eating disorder shortly after my 2-month work hiatus. I put in my 2 weeks notice, and right around then, my body began attacking itself with the itchiest skin I've ever experienced. It took 25 years to diagnose psoriasis, during which time I was prescribed steroids. Endlessly, my body became addicted to steroids, despite the US derm system not acknowledging that as a real issue. So I chose to be non-compliant and stopped all steroids on June 4, 2022. I was housebound for over 18 months as my body rejected the steroids and launched into full-fledged topical steroid withdrawal syndrome. My skin feels like it's on fire, it oozes, smells like a wet dog, and flakes off to the extent that I carry around a mini vacuum when I'm going from room to room. I lost all the bone in my upper gum area, so my 4 front teeth were on the brink of falling out only one prior cavity. No bone loss until steroid withdrawal, which happened super rapidly, had to have them extracted and replaced with screws which are still healing. In the meantime, my dermatologist office just disappeared, so I'm struggling to get my psoriasis meds refilled by a new provider. Since I don't have access to those 4 wires of derm records, I'm on state insurance and am waiting months to see specialists because I'm in a rural town back living with my parents at 31 because my body has imploded. This has led me to several larger conclusions that I think are relevant for everyone. If you don't make time for your wellness, you'll be forced to make time for an illness. Taking care of my eating disorder. Depression, anxiety via extensive therapy is undoubtedly the only reason I'm alive through the more recent shit. Learning to love yourself is the best protection against suicidality. Take care of your mind. Neglect manifests in the body. You don't realize how foundational health is until you lose it. Losing your health. Losing income. Access to care, social connection, professional opportunity, mobility, clarity of mind, independence, hobbies, time, energy, and often your own values. Story 4 from user Viraldar. Large prey animals are scarier and more likely to kill you than predators in general. Don't with wildlife unless you know what you're doing. Large fires are hotter than you think further away, then you think you don't need to be in the fire to get a burn. Dry fires spread, scary. Fast carbon monoxide, not wearing helmets. I've seen a video of a guy on a moped go sideways and have his head sandwiched between the moving wheels of a box truck and the pavement. But because he was wearing a helmet, his head skidded along the ground for a few feet before the truck stopped and he walked away. Knives. Even small ones can and will kill you in seconds, not minutes. Helicopter blades. I saw a video of someone walking upright towards the front of a helicopter, and the blades looked like they were several feet above head level. They were not several feet above head level. If I ever get in a helicopter now, I'm crouching from 50 feet away and crawling the last 30 feet. This was taught by my martial arts instructor on day 1. If you are potentially to be engaged in a street fight, these are the tips and steps to take. That will be the most likely to help you survive with the least training required first and most last. Try to make the other person not want to fight. De-escalation. If you can run or leave, do it. If they are insisting and you can't leave, shoot. them fights are never sure to not end in your death. 3. If you are being mugged and they have a knife, the proper self-defense form is to hand them your wallet. You will be cut. Death is very possible if you have a knife or any weapon near to hand. Use that and go for the face. Eyes and hands. If you have to fight with your fists, fight dirty, like a caged wild animal. Use what you learn here to prevent yourself from being hurt too bad. And hurt them. Hurt them as severely and quickly as possible. Do not give them a second to breath. And as soon as the threat is neutralized, book it the out of there 5. If you have friends and they still want to fight, don't be afraid to be called a pussy and get your friends on his ass too. But make sure to pull off once the fight has left him. Discuss this with your friends beforehand. Organic mercury and hydrogen fluoride scare me. Every explosion you set off will be 10 times more deadly to you, 10 times less effective on the object you are using it on, and every mechanical failure will be 10 times more catastrophic than you think it could be. It will also fail and cause the worst-case scenario. Every time this set of rules will make people think you are overly cautious until you're alive, and others aren't if something might explode. Think about every direction that fragments might travel and don't be there. Surprising how obvious this is, but I've seen someone stand directly in front of a burning car's pressurized tire and get a near miss on a very fast-moving chunk of rubber-moving water. It is heavier than you. It is heavier than your car. It can and will you up. Edit. I thought about this after microwave electronics. The magnetron in a microwave is the one cause of death of electronic enthusiasts. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and write comments. See you later.